Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. I'd say glad to have you aboard tonight, but you see it, the Edmonton Oilers. Come on, man. Try to build any momentum in what direction whatsoever. And instead, the one guy that you can't let win the hockey game in that fashion wins the hockey game in that fashion in Jesper Wallstedt, who's, having a meteoric rise right quick out of the gates here this season for the Minnesota Wild. And that's not at the fault of Stuart Skinner, who was one goal worse than that man all night. And unfortunately, Jesper Wallstedt finishes the job, and he gets the shutout for the fourth time in the last 6 games started for him. All right, where do we begin? Well, we have a lot of places to go with this one. So friends, if you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV tonight. I'm going to hit the copium trail. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know if you know what copium is, but you saw the thumbnail. I'll flash it again here. This is absolutely an Oilers nightmare. The problem with saying that, the problem with owning that is the fact that you also have to account that the Edmonton Oilers are the Edmonton Oilers. And in saying that, Jesper Wallstedt looks absolutely brilliant for the Minnesota Wild. And they're flashing on the 2021 draft day. Trade revisited, Xavier Bourgault and Luca Musenberger, ultimately the draft picks coming back for the 20th overall pick, which was Jesper Wallstedt. The toughest part here is I'd love to say, Jesper Wallstedt would solve all the Oilers' problems right now. Jesper Wallstedt was the solution we should have had all along. If not Wyatt Johnston, man, this Oilers team would be absolutely unreal if we had either of those guys instead of Xavier Bourgault. And I get the sentiment. I get the we missed out on that. I get the, it sucks that our drafting was so terrible. It sucks that our GM and scouts were just awful at what they did. Sure, whatever. Blame whoever you want for what this is. The worst part is, this is the Edmonton Oilers we're talking about, and whether, Jesper Wallstedt is what he is now for the Minnesota Wild, and he does that for us in some other parallel universe, or, he's exactly like Stuart Skinner. We would hate the guy all the same, and he probably doesn't end up becoming what he is today for the Minnesota Wild on this heater, simply because he's an Edmonton Oilers goaltender. And it's tough to say, but it doesn't matter who we've drafted. It doesn't matter unless it's a gimme pick, right? And even when it's a gimme pick, look at Taylor Hall and Nail Yakupov or those bunch. Right? It just doesn't matter for the Oilers. They find a way to screw it up somehow, some way, and just not translate what is great upside, great potential into a great player. And yeah, sure, we've picked a lot of duds. I get that, but I think the hard part here, like I'm saying, is just understanding that, yeah, we could have picked Jesper Wallstedt. Does he turn into the guy that gets 4 shutouts in 6 games in 2025, 2026? Probably not. And even if he does, we'll just kick him out of town a few years later because we get tired of his shenanigans anyhow. So I don't know. It's tough because, again, at the other end of the ice is Stuart Skinner, who loses this 1-0 after winning a hockey game 4-0. And like I said off the top, the one guy you couldn't afford to let win this game in this fashion is Jesper Wallstedt. Well, at the victim of Stuart Skinner. And, it's not Skinner's fault by any means. The Oilers lost tonight. I think Jesper Wallstedt, by every metric, was brilliant. But I think as well, you look at an Oilers team that just can't put the goal scoring consistency together, right? This is a team that 3rd best in the league on the power play entering the game and 11th in the league in goals. And it's just, come on, guys. At some point, we got to start piling in goals. And I get that a goalie gets hot and beats you sometimes, but that's been, maybe the excuse one too many times over the past 3 years, especially early in the season. And I'm sorry, you have that many shifts late in the game with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman out there. You have a power play to end the game. You have 5 forwards on the ice with an empty net and Bouchard in the final 40. You got to come up with a result at some point. And it's just getting old. It's really getting old, and it's something where we should have been talking about. That's 2 in a row, and here we go. The Oilers are all of a sudden getting going. And instead, just the way it goes as an Oilers fan. I'm not talking as the Oilers, just the way it goes as an Oilers fan. You know, okay, looks like we might have something brewing here after the Seattle Kraken game. The Oilers did the job. You know, again, so what? Seattle's the lowest scoring team or whatever in the NHL. You still have to win the game if you're the Oilers. It doesn't matter if and or but. You still have to win. They do. That's great. Awesome. Now let's go into Minnesota. Minnesota's riding pretty hot this year. But hey, you know what? We just came off a big win. Let's go get a second one. And you play a game that is pretty dang tight. But as far too often this year and in the past 3-4 years when it comes to this part of the calendar, you didn't win. You weren't on the right side of it. And I mean, it's frustrating as hell. And again, like I'm saying, the worst kick in the nuts about it is the fact that Jesper Wallstedt's the guy that gets the shutout for the Minnesota Wild. Now, I will say the saving grace as a long-term Edmonton Oilers fan that can remember back to those early years against the Minnesota Wild in 05, 06, 06, 07, 07, 08 is the Wild were a nightmare team to play. I mean, there was just not a good game the Oilers ever had against the Wild, specifically in Minnesota, but especially just at large. And now you're looking at it from an Oilers fan perspective in 25-26, and the Wild might just have this monster behemoth of a goaltender on them again, and that just does not bode well for us getting away from, you know, kind of the hard set that is this night, where it's just you should come up with a result, and instead you just get absolutely stonewalled at every turn throughout 60 minutes. And I mean, the Oilers piled up 30 plus shots tonight, so not a lack of an effort there from the offense, but they just are incapable of finishing off any sort of job tonight against the Minnesota Wild. And like I said, credit to Jesper Wallstedt, credit to the Minnesota Wild, and they get a goal from Jonas Brodin. So it's like, again, right? Are you talking about a great goal scorer in Kaprizov firing you up a few hundred times? No, it's just the Wild get that one extra, and we just can't muster anything, and that's kind of where we sit a lot of the way through this season so far. Is even when we do get great goaltending, we still aren't finding ways to win. And yeah, here we are, right? Just on another losing end of a game here, trying to rationalize why it's maybe not the end of the world. Or for me tonight, just sitting here saying, man, I'm tired of feeling crappy after every single game that, you know, the Oilers are close in and can't close out because one reason or another, whatever excuse you want to make. And I'm sure already by the time you've gotten to this video, I've got about 5 comments that are blaming Skinner for the loss, despite the Oilers not scoring a single goal tonight, and saying that Jesper Wallstedt should have been the goaltender for the Oilers at this point, and it should have been us shutting them out and all that. Like I said, I rambled on about that at the start of the video, simply to prove the point that I know how things go for the Oilers, and expecting Jesper Wallstedt in some parallel universe to have been the answer here, you're putting too much faith in the Edmonton Oilers as a hockey team to do that. So, friends, that'll close it out for me here tonight. Again, great if you have argument points, whatever you want to argue in the comments section, sure, let's go. But for right now, it is truly an Oilers nightmare tonight against the Minnesota Wild, as they just can't close it out against a team that, again, you know, historically we've had problems against, and here tonight we just have problems against a goalie we once upon a time could have drafted. Have a great night. Enjoy yourselves. We'll talk tomorrow.